Hi Bloomington, I'm Mayor Tim Busse, and this is a special, in-depth Council Minute. In our videos and in the City Council meetings over the past few weeks, we've worked hard to be factual, transparent, and straightforward as we've discussed the financial realities Bloomington is facing as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. I wanted to take a minute today to give you the latest update on the work that City staff has done developing options to balance the 2020 budget. To make sure we're all starting from the same place, I want to lay out some basic assumptions. First, as we've talked about, there will be a significant decrease in local lodging and admissions taxes. These two revenues represent about $10 million of Bloomington's $80 million general fund budget. Lodging tax revenue for 2020 was expected to be about $8.7 million, but we won't be anywhere near that number. In fact, a worst-case, slow recovery reduces that lodging tax revenue to about $1 million instead. Second, all levels of government, cities, counties, and the state need to prepare for the potential of significant property tax delinquencies in 2020. People are out of work. People are struggling financially. Hennepin County has extended the deadline for the first half payments from May 15th to July 15th, but unless things change dramatically very quickly, it likely won't matter. We will see a significant property tax delinquency rate, and we need to prepare for that reality. And finally, the city will also have program revenue losses due to facilities that are closed and programs that will be delayed or canceled. So, from a best-case scenario where the economic recovery begins in earnest in June, to a worst-case scenario where the recovery doesn't begin until January of 2021, the City of Bloomington's 2020 revenue shortfall is projected to be anywhere from $8.5 million to almost $17.8 million. Now, this is where we are today. These revenue projections are being continually updated and will continue to be refined as the year progresses. But right now, the 2020 revenue shortfall is projected to be somewhere between $8.5 and $17.8 million. So what are we doing about it? At the April 20th City Council meeting, staff proposed and the City Council agreed to a combination of budget reductions, deferred capital spending, unallocated carryover from 2019, and use of reserves to successfully manage a downturn that lasts into the summer. Let me take a minute to talk about each of these items. First, staff has identified cost-cutting service reductions of $2.9 million, which include things like eliminating seal coating in 2020. Leaving some full-time positions that are currently not filled open for the remainder of the year, delaying hiring of a number of positions, and all departments have identified reductions in training, part-time seasonal staff, supplies, and services. In addition to the service reductions, we've also identified capital projects and purchases that will be delayed or deferred, which will save about $730,000. That list includes things such as a brush truck for the fire department, an exterior restroom remodel at the Bloomington Family Aquatic Center, 7 fleet vehicles that had been scheduled for purchase this year, and a new fleet fuel system. If you watched the council meeting on April 20th, you saw that the council adopted the 10-year capital improvement plan, and you might be thinking, well, just cancel every project. I can assure you that until we have a better idea of the city's cash position, any project that is not already under contract or related to critical infrastructure is currently on hold. Even with the service reductions and deferred capital purchases, we will still need to identify an additional $5 to $14 million to offset the projected revenue shortfalls. Now, for decades, the City of Bloomington has had a policy of maintaining strong working capital reserves in all of the city's funds. It's one of the reasons why Bloomington has maintained AAA bond ratings from all 3 credit rating agencies. Those reserves are there to ensure that there are funds set aside for future capital purchases and to support city operations in difficult economic times. This is certainly one of those times. The plan is to use $3.9 million in reserves to help address the budget shortfall. But we need to keep in mind that we can't completely deplete all of the city's reserves. That would be fiscally irresponsible. But depending on the length of the recovery, we'll look at other fund balance reserves to see if those balances could be used without negatively impacting long-term financial plans. We also had some good news that 2019 revenues were higher than budgeted, and the city's investment interest revenue also did well in 2019. That means an additional $2.4 million that we can use to fill the gap. Now, if you've been doing the math in your head, you know that this combination of budget reductions, deferred capital spending, the use of reserves, and the use of unallocated carryovers from 2019 it totals approximately $10.1 million. With this plan in place, we're confident that Bloomington can successfully manage a downturn that lasts into the summer. We've all learned that this pandemic is working at its own pace. Staff is continuing to look at a range of solutions if the economic downturn continues into the fall or even longer. Next week at the City Council study session on April 27th, we'll be discussing additional options for service reductions combined with the use of reserves to balance the 2020 budget. Be on the lookout for a video after the study session outlining our discussion. Now, switching gears here just a bit, I've acknowledged all along that the city will be forced to make some hard and unpopular decisions as a result of this pandemic. As you may have heard, the City of Bloomington has announced changes regarding parks and recreations operations and programming in response to COVID-19. The goal all along has been to strike the right balance between maintaining recreational services, programs, and parks, while at the same time ensuring the health and safety of Bloomington residents. But given the reality of the moment, a number of programs, facilities, and events will be canceled, closed, or delayed until further notice. Trust me when I say these were difficult decisions for both staff and for the council. We certainly understand how important these summer programs are in terms of physical and mental health and community involvement. I also understand that for many families, summer programming provides an affordable childcare option. Most importantly, summer in Minnesota is far too short, and these are the things that make summer fun. The complete list is available on the City of Bloomington website. I encourage you to please take a look. The refund process is underway for folks who have already paid for summer programming. A couple of things that I do want to point out. First, it's important to remember that facility closures were based on public health safety standards and social distancing guidelines. So lifting of the stay-at-home executive order does not necessarily mean that distancing practices will also be lifted. Second, you probably know that golf courses are now open and that Dwan will be open as of April 22nd. But the city has decided not to open Highland Greens in 2020. Highland Greens is undoubtedly an important part of summer for many people, but the course has been operating in the red since at least 2005 and is currently being subsidized by property tax dollars in the amount of $300,000 per year. That type of subsidy doesn't seem appropriate right now. The city will focus its efforts on securing an agreement with the Minnesota section of the PGA to take over future operations and develop a home of golf for the state of Minnesota. Another note, Creekside Community Center is likely to be closed for the foreseeable future due to distancing standards, public health threat to the seniors, and facility maintenance costs. And our motor vehicle office will also remain closed because employee and customer safety could not be assured, and the services offered would not bring in enough to justify reopening. The operation is subsidized by the city, and further losses complicate our current budget issues. Now that's a long update. Thank you very much for sticking with me. As always, don't hesitate to contact me or any member of the City Council if you have questions, comments, or concerns. Stay safe, Bloomington.